riding down Highway 61. Sides of the roads all lined with fields, nothing but sunset in the windshield. Feel it as soon as I ride into town. This is where I go to slow down. Miles and miles of soybeans and corn. I'm in the place where the blues was born. About a mile from the big muddy river, place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can feel my worries drift away from being out in the sun all day. No matter where in the world I go, I'll always find home on the banks of that oxbow.
What's up, guys? Brad Chappell back at the Crappie compound, Como, Mississippi, at the Crappie Magnet, B&M, Hook and Bullet, Cornfield Fishing Gear, fun weekend. They did a giveaway back at Grizzly Jig, and guys, we've got invited to it, the Crappie Connection guys, and a lot of other guys. Man, it has been a blast.
We've had a crew here, so I counted 42 tonight.
Oh, wow.
For the fish fry, and I think we had 35 last night, and we're expecting around 40 people tomorrow night. So we've got 8 guests, we got 4 guides, and then just a whole bunch of different pro staffers here.
It's going to be a lot of good stuff that everybody will see from this event. So make sure next year when you get the Grizzly Jig show in the spring, you get involved in this contest, because I'm hoping this is going to be an annual deal for sure.
Oh, it is. This is the second time we've done it. It's real simple. It's just any customer that comes to Grizzly Jig, you have to be actually physically come to the Grizzly Jig show. Okay?
Right.
Which is typically at the end of January, the 1st of February every year. And the way you enter is if you buy 1 B&M product, 5 Crappie Magnet products, 1 Hook and Bullet, or 1 Cornfield product, at each of the 4 different sponsors, you get an entry to have your name drawn.
Man.
And then on Sunday, we draw the names out, and it's an all-inclusive weekend. The guests come down, and man, the only thing they got to bring is fishing license, and a cooler to take fish home. And it's really simple. I mean, for them, and it's a vacation. We make it pretty special. I mean, we had swag bags for them tonight, and had some really cool T-shirts and hats, and Grizzly Jig brought some stuff too, and it's just been a great weekend so far. Tomorrow's the actual first day of fishing. Yeah. And we're doing a little tagging tournament. We got the Crappie Forever guys here this weekend too. We brought them over, and we're doing a little sponsorship with those guys, and we've talked about that. And so it's just gonna be a fun weekend. We're gonna tomorrow out of the 4 guides. The team that weighs the biggest fish, we're going to give them a trophy called the Big Gun Trophy to honor Les Smith's dad, Mr. A.E. So that'll be pretty cool. And the trophy's going to stay here at the Crappie compound, and the winners will sign it and date it, and then we're going to do that every year.
That's cool.
And then the 2 guests that are in the boat with the guide, they get 2 of the cups. That's actually mounted on top of the Cornfield Crappie, mount. Yeah. So a fun weekend all in all, and we're really excited to be here. And we're excited Crappie Connections here with us too.
Well, you're going to have to maybe kick us out of here, but I'll let you guys introduce yourself.
All right. I'm Kirby Ham, crappie guide out of Kansas City, and had a passion for fishing for crappie all my life, ever since I was a kid. We ate or shot or caught a lot of the stuff that we ate.
Yeah.
So, lots of quail, lots of pheasant, and I mean, you could eat a bass if you were really hungry.
That's right.
Catfish is a little better, but if you caught a crappie, you're in high cotton. So I focused on crappie for a long time in my life, and
You do a little bit more than guide, though. Come on now.
Well, yeah. I mean, guide's kind of the side hustle, but more than a side hustle, it's just a way for me to kind of decompress from, the real job. I get outside and I feel like I'm a better dad, a better husband, better boss, better employee. So yeah, it's spiritual for me. So,
right.
but I'm a radio personality in Kansas City, and used to be in the nightclubs a lot, but thank goodness I'm old and fat now, so I focus on crappie fishing.
Hey, Brad, he's selling himself short.
Oh, I know.
He's the best DJ there is in the whole country.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Listen,
I've got video of it
already. He got
already.
recognized this year. I think it was Guinness Book of World Records pending
wow.
the most radio hours on mixed shows on the weekend, Kirby. How many thousands of hours was it?
I'm not for certain the exact
20-something
title.
thousand?
It was 23 years worth of radio shows consecutive, and that's like one of the longest running shows in I guess in the world. So I was very honored when my mom, she was there, but my wife and my kids, they surprised me. I thought we were going to get a new bird dog puppy. It was around January 4th, and they blindfolded me and they drove me around, and then they took me to the radio station, and my fellow peers were there and my bosses, and they did some looking up, and they did a little presentation for me, and I was very blown away. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah,
that's a big feather in your cap there now.
He's also the host of Fish Eat Live on
That's
YouTube.
right.
Oh yeah, that's my pride and joy. That's my pride and joy.
That's his fun.
Yeah,
That's his toy right there.
I'm not having you guys milk compliments for me. I've just been enjoying the
You're blushing
festivities.
over here. I kind of like this.
Gosh, I told you I didn't want to do this. I've been eating my weights. I had a couple cocktails. Let's get into talking crappie fishing.
No, I'm kind of liking this at the moment.
I'm being roasted.
You're blushing.
Let's grill Kirby.
Cut.
You're kind of blushing.
Cut. Take two. Take two.
No. We're rocking.
No. Anyway, yeah, but it's a lot of fun. I knew you were going to do this.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to do this, especially with him around.
Yeah, I was
you know what he does? He tells the people to trick me and play tricks on me.
I don't see that happen.
No, he does.
I don't see that happen.
They
The
put
rattlesnake
snakes
in the
in
cooler.
coolers.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
let
yeah.
I'm fishing with an 82-year-old man, and he lets the boat drift off of alligator-infested waters. I've got to swim and get his boat. Then we go out
like
and we
that.
set up on the spot, and he pushes the button on his deploying
I have
trolling
heard
motor.
that story.
Oh yeah, then an alligator swam up to the boat.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
Anyway, I just love this fishy.
This is a crappie fishing brotherhood, and I've said that a lot
yeah.
today.
Oh, yeah.
And if you ever want to get into a great sport, crappie fishing, in my opinion at least, I have gained so many friends, so many buddies through this past, I'm going to say 12, 14, 15 years, whatever it's been for me.
Yeah.
And it's a brotherhood now.
It is, isn't it weird?
It really
It's almost
is.
like every time you get together with these, Grizzly Jig shows and these sort of things, and all of the, the crappie tournaments. It's almost like a Thanksgiving where
Right.
all the family
It's a
gets
family
together.
reunion.
I mean, I don't know you that well, but I know of you from what little that I've, hung out with you. I feel like we're kind of like twins. We have
that's
the
scary.
same, interest. We
Yeah.
have the same kind of, morals, and we want to promote the sport. And you, Brad, are doing a phenomenal job with the Crappie Connection, and you've gotten involved with the Crappie Forever guys, which is, pushing the conservation of those big fish. And, it is a brotherhood.
It
You know
is
what
a
I mean?
brotherhood.
I feel like I could call on some of these guys that I've met over the last 5 years, and I'm like, hey, man, I'm in jail again. Can
Right.
you bail me out? So,
Yeah,
Note he said it again.
I caught that. I'm sure everybody did too.
Did I say again?
Again.
Oh, my gosh.
But I got a really cool topic tonight that I wanted to bring both of these guys in here because I know they're really good at it. And I believe that anybody listening can gain some knowledge on the casting the brush piles in the summertime.
Absolutely, yeah. It's it's one of my favorite techniques.
I agree.
And the beauty of it is, and especially in the area I live in, Nashville, the lakes that I'm around, these fish move into these brush piles after they spawn.
Yep.
Basically to recuperate from the spawn, and find a place to kind of hide, and in addition to that, you're always going to have some kind of bait or food around in and around these brush piles. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. And you're going to get a lot of fish in these brush piles,
Yeah.
and stake beds and any kind of cover for that, respect that's in the water like that. We put a lot of stuff out ourselves, and we try to put them in highly productive areas, on drop-offs, on points, on the edge of flats. You try to put them where there's not a lot of structure. And as far as fishing them, casting is just a really effective way.
Yeah.
I don't like to get too close to the brush piles.
Yep.
I like to pull up. I like to get downwind of the brush pile where I can look at it with live scope. Sometimes I use a marker buoy. Sometimes I don't. I've also got anchors on my boat where I can anchor upwind and still use my live scope but not touch the trolling motor. And, that works too, because a lot of times if you, pitch a bait out there or even a slip float, you can let the wind blow your bait, right over the top of the pile. And
what kind of anchors are you using on your boat?
I've got the Minn Kota anchors, and I've got a remote for the back one, so I don't have to get up. And so I can just hit a switch and drop my back one, and then my front one, I just go up and hit the button and drop it.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that here a good bit here lately, and it's just another great way to fish.
Yeah.
And plus, I've got control of the live scope too.
Right.
And there's a couple different ways to cast these brush piles. And Kirby and I fish, a good bit together. Sometimes I fish with a slip float, and I'll pitch out and cast to it. A lot of times I fish with a Weedless jig head. Sometimes I fish with a minnow, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I tip it with a slab bite. And, when I pull up to one, I like to catch the most active fish off the top first, okay? And I'll look at it and I'll say, hey, they're on the front side. Let's get those first. And that way, if you catch one on the front side, you're not pulling him through the other fish and kind of spooking them.
Oh, that's a good tip.
Yeah.
I got to write that down.
Kirby's also got a killer way, a killer method, and he drop shots. So I'll let him talk a little bit about that.
Before we go there, but you have to give everybody your breakdown of your weedless jig with the weights and everything, because hosting Fish Eat Live, I get to interview the best of the best, in my opinion.
Oh, no doubt.
And every time I go out, I learn just tons, and that's what the show's all about. Kind of like what you're doing.
Yeah.
We're sharing the information. But I know Kent's my boss, and I'm not just blowing smoke, but he is surgical with this technique.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, so the Weedless, let me talk about that for a sec. So I got a guy over in Alabama. It's B&B Weedless Jigs. And he'll make hair jigs, and he'll make just regular lead heads, but they've got a 3-prong, I think it's like 60-pound monofilament weed guard on them, okay? And that weed guard is key because you can basically chunk it into any type of structure and kind of work it through that structure weedlessly, kind of like a worm, like Texas rig style. And that's a lot of what I do is I just pitch it, and a lot of times I let it fall, all the way to the bottom and work it out of the pile all the way through the limbs or whatever it might be. It just kind of depends on what I see, on the live scope. But that Weedless jig head's pretty killer.
I'm going to get that number.
Yeah, and I'll tell you another thing, too. Black crappie don't like big jig heads, okay?
Right.
And a lot of times I'm fishing in 15 to 25 foot of water, so I actually take a worm weight. I've got a 32nd ounce worm weight. It's the smallest worm weight you can buy. I'll tie that Weedless jig head on. I tie a really small loop knot. I'm talking tiny, tiny loop knot. And I'll cinch it down, and above that I put a little bitty, the smallest bobber stop. It's a micro rubber bobber stop, and then that 32nd ounce. Okay, and then I take the bobber stopper and I pull it down right on top of the jig head so it pegs my worm weight against the jig, and it just gives it a little bit more weight and helps get it down there quicker. And I like an 1/8 ounce. That's about as big, as you can go, in my opinion, with the black crappie. Most black crappie aren't going to bite a 1/4 ounce jig head. They just don't like anything that big. So, but that's kind of my setup. And I'll, if I'm using plastic, crappie magnet, just love those baits. But this guy ties me some hair jigs, and I've got some hair that's 80% of the time that's what I use. And it's a white and gray hair jig, and it is killer with a white head. And it's my all-time favorite, and I've got different versions of it, but it's always white and gray. And Kirby's been with me; he knows. I mean, it's just a killer bait. They bite it, and they bite it in clear water. They bite it in stained water.
It looks just like a minnow.
Yeah,
it looks just like a bait
really
fish.
Does. I mean, it really
any
does.
type of shad you ever see on the surface, it looks exactly like.
That's my favorite setup. That's the way I like to fish.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, when Kirby and I are fishing together, we literally dissect the brush pile. We fish every inch of it. I'll pitch out there. A lot of times I'll catch those really aggressive fish right on the top of it.
Absolutely. Quick.
He comes in right behind me with that drop shot rig. So tell him about that, Kirby. It's killer.
Oh, that's my bread.
Tell him about the hook and the weight.
Spit it out.
Okay, this is, if you have brush piles, stake beds, the thicker the better. This is another way of kind of fishing weedless with basically a number 2 true turn hook and a minnow. So basically what I do is whenever we find a brush pile, Kent will cast first and, kind of dissect the top. But then there's always one shadow in that brush pile that's way down there. And a lot of people are apprehensive to actually, try to pitch on that fish or they'll try to pitch on it and they'll get hung up or something like that. I have basically stolen a technique from walleye fishing and applied it to crappie fishing, and it's super simple. It consists of a 3/8 ounce bell sinker. Okay. Mm-hmm. I use Gamma copolymer 6-pound test. I go up from the bell sinker about a foot. Usually on the live facing sonar, the Garmin stuff, you can see where that fish is in the brush pile. If he's way down low on the bottom, I'll go shorter, maybe 6 inches. If he's, up a little bit higher, I'll go, a foot. Or if it's really crazy conditions and wind and that sort of stuff, I might even go up 1 or 2 foot. And then I tie a loop knot with a number 2 true turn hook.
Above the
bell sinker. So you got the bell sinker, you got the line, and then you got the hook up here. Okay. And it has to be a true turn hook. All right. A lot of people, TTI Blakemore, they make those red true turn hooks. Yep. Well, they've got a cam action bend in the hook, and a lot of people say, well, what's that about? I get that question on the boat all the time. Well, the beauty of that is that cam action hook actually turns away from resistance and towards pressure. Mm-hmm. So it's the perfect hook. If you're not trying to set it, you can drag it through the brush and it won't hook. But if it does hook on something, like you're moving it, all you have to do is lower your line, and the weight of the bell sinker will unhook the hook. And then if you just hold it there, the minnow's not going to last long at the living room of a big crappie in a brush pile. And usually the bigger fish are on the bottom, so this is a perfect way to approach it. The motto when I fish this and when I take people out and guide them, and every time I take people out guiding, they're like, what? I've never fished for crappie like this. But, we're fishing big brush piles in Kansas and these kind of pothole lakes that we have. But I always say keep the line tight to feel the bite, because you can throw it out there, and I like to throw past the brush pile.
Like cast it, or what do you mean?
Cast it past the brush pile and work it back, straight line, and just drag the bell sinker along the bottom through the brush pile. Now, if you get hung up on something, you just lower the line and the weight of the bell sinker turns it off.
We'll try that.
But if you keep the line tight and you just hold it still and just keep that minnow in that brush pile as long, and then you're going to just feel this thump, and then you set the hook. And then the next part is finagle him out of that. That's another key ingredient, is keeping that line tight, because if that line's tight and he hits it, you're immediately going to set the hook and he's going to come up. If you don't have the line tight, he's going to take it, you're not going to feel it, and he's going to run, and then you're going to get hung up. You're not going to get him out. So line tight to feel the bite all the time. And this technique is deadly. It's like a 1-2 punch, wouldn't you say, Driscoll?
Yeah, definitely. And hey, he does it with a jig head too. He'll take a small, like a 32nd ounce jig head, and put a plastic on it as well, and do the same with the plastic.
Yeah,
it's killer. and now the funny thing too is he was talking about when he gets hung up. I've just watched him. He gets excited. He gets excited because he's like tickling this bait, and he's like, oh, I just came over a limb,
Yeah.
And he'll get hung up a second, and he'll drop his rod tip and shake it just a little bit, like this little funny twitch, and it comes loose, and he just pulls it again.
And the loop knot helps with that, because even though the line's tight, there's that little bit of gap in between the true turn hook, which turns away from resistance and towards pressure. So if there's nothing holding onto it, it's going to let go and turn. But if there's something on it and you set the hook, it's lights out.
Now, I want to hear this complete setup. What pole are you using? And you said the 6-pound Gamma.
Gamma, yeah.
What pole are you using?
My favorite pole is the Sharpshooter 6. I think it was designed by Russ Bailey for dock shooting, but it's the only 6-foot rod in the B&M arsenal that is a one-piece graphite. So the sensitivity is phenomenal. The backbone is amazing. I take it to South Dakota for walleye fishing and don't have any problems getting those big walleye up. Of course, you don't want to boat sling them if they're 4 and 5 pounds, but it's just the sensitivity on it. It's my favorite rod. It's the best utility rod, in my opinion, that B&M makes for a beginner fisherman, for an expert fisherman, for any type of fishing. Great for throwing slip bobbers, corks, banks. I use it for throwing fin spins and road runners during the spawn. It's just a really versatile rod.
So I want to get this straight, just to make sure that everybody at home is gathering what you've put down.
Okay.
You're using a bell seeker on the bottom with a small loop knot.
Yeah, I should have brought a demo.
Well, I mean, everybody knows pretty much what.
Okay. All right.
A true turn hook.
Yeah. Okay.
6 to 12 inches up.
There's one tip. It's very important that I forgot to mention. So when you're rigging this, okay, you take your line, you go through the back. If you're holding the hook and the hook's coming out like this,
the point away from
point would be the front. Come through the back when you tie your loop knot 3 times, okay? And after that 3rd time, it's going to make the hook stand upright. The hook will be upright. So the minnow will swim with the hook actually parallel. So it helps you in the hook set. If it was the other way, if you put it through the front, the hook would be upside down. Now, another good trick, if you're having a tricky fish that's in a brush pile and he won't move, you run it, you tie it correctly, but you put the minnow on upside down. That way the minnow will constantly try to swim to turn itself over, and it drives fish crazy.
That's a good tip.
Yeah, I like that.
Hooking a minnow upside down.
Yeah, because it'll constantly try to turn itself over, and it will not be allowed to by the way that you tied the knot. So it'll just, because a lot of times minnows will get stagnant. They'll just hold still down there, like, what's happened? I got a hook in my mouth.
Well, a lot of times what happens, especially in the lake that I'm fishing every day, is these fish, I think they start feeding heavily at night. When it gets extremely hot, I think they really start feeding heavily at night and conserve energy during the heat of the day. So you might have a good bite, from daylight to, let's say, 9 o'clock, but once those dog days of summer is coming, this sounds like this would be
absolutely
one of the best times to do it.
Yeah, and it also works great in rough conditions when you can't cast and you can't, spider rig and you can't long pole them because of conditions. We fished a tournament in Kentucky, 3 or 4 years ago, and we were in 32nd place going into the last day, and we couldn't get on them. We had 5-foot rollers, and it was scary out there, wasn't it, Driscoll?
Yeah,
I was soaked to the bone before we even got to our first spot, and I basically fished the whole day shivering, didn't I?
I love that.
He forgot his rain suit.
Oh yeah, I've been there.
No, I had a rain suit. It just was a cheap one. But anyway, so we get out there. We got 5-foot rollers. We can't cast. We can't pitch. We can't do anything. But we could do the drop shot. We could throw it out. It would go straight down to where we were at.
That 3/8.
And it would hold. And even though these waves are going like this, you just adjust.
Yeah, you feel it up and
You
down.
keep the line tight and either reel up or whatever, so your line's constantly tight. And we went from 32nd to 16th.
What's the ideal distance? You don't want to be too close, or you don't want to be too far? Or
Well,
what's the happy range when you're doing this?
Gosh, I tell you what, this setup is so amazing. I've actually used this setup with heavier gauge line and put stink bait for catfish, 1.5 to 2 feet up. That way the scent, permeates the water from the top, not from the bottom, because it'll permeate the water column so much faster, in the middle, as opposed to trying to go up at the bottom. If you have any current, the scent's going to be washed down on But if you put it up, if you keep it up in the middle, and just look at the graph and look at the brush pile. We've fished brush piles that they were in the top of trees. Well, we were having difficulty with keeping a jig with the current that we were in, this river system. I can't remember what it was. So we just made like a 7-foot leader with the bell sinker up here.
Wow.
And the hook way up here, and we cast it out there and would either hook it over the branch and catch the fish that were up in the top of the treetops, or we'd go to the bottom or just adjust it to whatever you see on the screen wherever they're holding.
Do you ever pitch 2 minutes at a time?
You know what? With like a hook and a hook.
So if you have one at 6 inches, would you come back? Could you?
No, I don't do that, because what happens is if you get one of them hooked, okay, it takes away from the weight of the bell sinker to free it if you got the middle one hooked. So it's very difficult situation to do with two. I've thought about that and I've tried it, and it does not work. It has to be a single hook.
And that's cheaper on minnows then.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever heard anybody, at least on Crappie Connection, describe this technique, and I like it.
Oh, well, I think that's why Driscoll kind of took me under his wing.
Yeah.
There was a big.
I mean, it's just basic drop shotting, for bass. This is how bass fishermen fish, and Kirby's just kind of modified it, and for crappie, and he's just gotten really, really good at it. And I tell you, he uses the sinker he uses has got a swivel in it too.
Right.
And that swivel comes up, through the sinker itself, and it, that helps too with line twist and everything else. And to his point, certain conditions like wind and stuff like that, when I'm trying to cast a jig, a lot of times that wind will blow, a jig or blow a loop in your line, and you just don't feel it bite it.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of success with it. He's really taught me that.
You know where that would be deadly this weekend?
So, where's that?
Ross Barnett, it would win.
Oh,
it.
yeah.
It would probably win it.
Yeah, and I tell you, man, like fishing stake beds, because the stakes are vertical, and, a lot of times you can't hold your bait, in the strike zone, like a jig. You got to either swim it back or be over the top of it. With that bell sinker, you can pinch that bell sinker in there, and if you look at it close enough, you can really tell how far off the bottom these fish are.
Absolutely.
So and always put it, like
above
3 or 4 inches above the fish.
Yeah, you can tie that rig specifically to catch one fish. And,
I've done that many times.
It is really effective. And you were talking about what's the perfect distance?
Yeah, from the boat.
Yeah, I like to be about 20, 25 feet. And I'll tell you what happens in these brush piles. When you catch 3 or 4 of them, they start sinking down in the brush. They start getting smart. And a lot of fishermen are kind of hesitant to get really down in it, like, close to the bottom in the really thick part. And that's where Kirby's, rig really pays off, and my weedless steel. I'll really slow down my retrieve. And I'm like him. I like to pitch it out past the brush pile. And if I'm seeing a specific fish, I'll get it on plane coming to him. And I'll try to be 3 to 4 inches above that fish. And, I'll just kind of feather it right above him.
I always call it tickling it.
Yeah, tickling. Exactly. That's a great way to describe it. And I like a 7.5 foot B&M 75 anniversary.
Right.
All right, and it's got the bigger spinning guides on it. I like the length of the rod. It helps me cast it a little bit further, and I just like the action of it. That's kind of my favorite setup. And I'll also set that same rod up with his bottom bouncing rig. So we've got a little bit different. He's got a 6 foot dock shooter that he likes. I like the 7.5, but that's just me.
Yeah.
And I tell you, man, it's a killer setup.
Man, this is a killer. What is a good title for this? I like it.
Bottom bumping.
No. It's got to be more exciting.
Killer brush piles.
Yeah.
Something, man.
Killer brush piles in the heat. I like it.
Oh, you mean for a title of the show?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Drunk Kirby is what I call it.
Fun Kirby. How about that?
Okay, all right. Yeah,
we can take that one.
Yeah, we'll take that. Sorry about that.
Guys, that's a great deal. I hope you learned something today, because I know I did, and I will send you some pictures after me trying it.
Okay, all right. Well, the best thing to do is let's just go out and do it together. Just practice a bit. I'll show you how to do it. So
I took Kirby long line in the spring. He got a little taste of pulling jigs.
Oh, my gosh. That was a nightmare. I was trying to...
because y'all caught so many fish.
Yeah, I'm like, Brad, I got to set these cameras up. And he had 5 on the floor. I'm like, just stop.
It was good.
He's like, I can't stop. I got the lines out already. And I'm
Ain't
like,
no
okay.
stopping. So we've had fun together already, and I can't wait to do some more stuff with both you guys in the future.
Absolutely,
Thank you, man. I appreciate you.
It's a blast.
It's been fun getting to know you.
Oh, yeah.
Love
Absolutely.
It. Love it.
And make sure you subscribe, hit your notifications, turn them on, and stay tuned for a lot of more Crappie Connection stuff down the road.
All right.
Till next time, you got Brad Chappell,
Ken Driscoll,
Kirby Ham.
holla.
About a mile from Big Muddy River, a place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can feel my